Albeit almost 6 years old as of this recording, Red Dead Redemption 2 is still an incredibly popular title with gamers, and just recently it became available on PlayStation Plus, bringing in more and more of an audience. I've covered strategy guides and beginner tips over multiple videos in the past, so I figured today that I would take the information from them all and place it into one easy to follow guide for those who are new to Red Dead Redemption 2. Even if you've sunk countless hours in, you may learn something new today that you previously weren't aware of. I'll be using an Xbox One controller in this guide, but the button prompts can be easily cross-referenced to the likes of the PlayStation, and for PC gamers, feel free to ask in the comment section if you're unsure. Although all of the footage is recorded from as early as Chapter 2, and I'll attempt to keep it as spoiler-free as possible, please bear in mind that there may be minor spoilers ahead. If you enjoy the following, you'll all know what to do, and if you're new to the channel and haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. Without further delay, let's get into what we came here to see. Tips for new players of Red Dead Redemption 2. Let's begin with the basics and look at some general gameplay tips. The world of Red Dead Redemption 2 is huge, and quite often you'll be referring to your in-game map for guidance. Now accessing the map can be a bit of a slow process, forcing the player to siphon through a couple of menu sections before arriving at where you want to be, but don't worry, as there's a much easier way to access the map. On Xbox, simply hold down the menu button for instant access, and when you've finished, hold B to return immediately into the gameplay. A small tip, I know, but once you've put several hours into the game, I promise you'll be using this quick access feature. Whilst exploring the map, after setting a waypoint, heading back to the gameplay, if you set your travel in motion and don't feel like button mashing, you can hold down the view button on your controller to activate cinematic mode and enjoy the scenery as you travel. But please be cautious, as road ambushes and such can still occur during this. It won't make you immune. On a handy side note, using the cinematic mode also makes random NPC interaction more likely. A small tip, but when you've reached your destination and wish to dismount your horse, use the analog sticks to dictate which side of the animal you actually jump down from. Handy to know if you're trying to get somewhere in a hurry. Arthur's famous hat is a predominant feature of his character, and some players may be concerned about losing it whilst out on their travels, but you don't need to worry. Even if it's not from Arthur's head, this particular item of clothing will always be available to the player. If you're away from camp, you can search your horse's saddlebags, and if you're back at camp, simply visit Arthur's personal tent where his clothing chest is located, and it's there. Something that new players may not have noticed at this clothing chest is that when altering Arthur's appearance, you can do more than just change clothes. You can alter the style in which he wears them too. By following the indicator button prompt, Arthur can have his shirt sleeves rolled up or down, his top collar closed or open, and his boots either over his pants or under, allowing the player to create an Arthur they wish to in their own specific style. Lastly, for Arthur's appearance, when out on the trail, at some point you're probably going to become soiled in mud, blood and the likes. If you're a fair distance from the nearest bathhouse and don't fancy the journey, you can change clothes at Arthur's horse to instantly put on a fresh clean set, which will also clean Arthur Morgan too. On a side note, when filthy, the NPCs of Red Dead Redemption will act accordingly and sometimes comment on your appearance. If you visit the general stores of the world, such as this one in Valentine, you can purchase an array of items and provisions, one of which is the pocket watch. What new players may not realise is that the pocket watch can be equipped within the menus, making it accessible for Arthur to easily check the current time. You'll find it in your inventory wheel, which can be activated by holding left bumper or L1. Speaking of the bumper buttons, there's a nice little animation you can trigger by double tapping either the left bumper on Xbox, L1 on PS, or the tab key on PC. Doing this, the pistol in Arthur's right hand will display a spinning animation, a little nod to the spaghetti westerns. Referring back to the in-game map, you'll notice that some of the mission markers are yellow and others are white. The yellow ones indicate main story missions, they are there permanently, but with the white ones it's a little more complex. The white ones are side quests or gang activities and sometimes can be time restricted, so in order to get the full experience of the title, I'd advise to complete these ones before it's too late. Back at camp, the gang's cook Pearson is capable of making more than a tasteless stew and camp decorations. He can also craft a variety of satchels for Arthur, each with its own unique perk. This includes a tonic satchel, an ingredient satchel, a provision satchel, and a valuable satchel, amongst others. Each allows the player to carry more of the specified item to that satchel. To obtain each one, there are detailed instructions on what Pearson requires. Ultimately, you'll want to craft them all to unlock the Legends of the East satchel, which combines the perks of all 7 of the others into one. Also, while at camp, it's definitely worth hanging around sometimes and getting to know the other members of the Van der Lin's gang. Most can often be seen telling stories of their past during late night conversations at the main campfire. These are interesting tales that add to the lore of the characters. One of the main aspects of the character of Arthur Morgan, and quite an important one, is his health, so let's look at some tips on this, as well as his cores. Arthur's health is displayed into two separate parts, the core and the white line surrounding. To quickly establish the difference, the white bar is Arthur's current health, and the more filled the core, the faster the white line will refill. This also applies in the same way to both his stamina gauge and Deadeye gauge too. There are several ways to replenish these cores and health indicators. Any tonics purchased from stores or found anywhere in the world will top up Arthur's health, stamina and Deadeye, with different tonics affecting different aspects, and different provisions will top up Arthur's health, stamina and Deadeye cores respectively in the same manner. But it's not just limited to food and drink per se. Different types of plant life can be consumed on the spot, or added to provisions when cooking to give an added effect. But beware, some plant life can be poisonous. Studying the plants before consuming will indicate exactly the benefits of each one. A little tip for finding plants is to use Arthur's Eagle Vision ability, which makes them much more visible. If you're short on cash, there's a neat little way you can replenish your cores for absolutely free. For example, in the town of Valentine not far from the gang's Horseshoe Overlook camp, the player can visit the Smithfield Saloon on the main strip and help themselves to complimentary almonds or pickled eggs located atop the bar. Alternatively, if you have no provisions or tonics on your person and aren't anywhere near a local town or settlement, there's an alternate way to replenish. When out anywhere in the wilderness, holding down the required button, which I believe is Y on the Xbox and triangle on the PlayStation, Arthur will rest himself by taking a moment. Even though the process of filling the cores and health bar are slower, it's still something. One other aspect that affects Arthur's cores, and eventually his health indicator if not dealt with, is the current temperature of his location. If Arthur is located in the colder parts of the regions, such as the snowy mountains of Ambarino, and isn't wearing suitable clothing, his cores will drain faster. Being overly dressed in warmer climates, such as the southern areas, have the same effect. Although the effect of the clothing is detailed during wardrobe changes, the cores will alert you that a change needs to be made by changing the icon to either a snowflake or a hot sun, stating that Arthur is either too cold or too hot. Replenishing with revisions not only fills Arthur's cores, but also affects the physical attributes of Arthur. For example, overheating will make Arthur more heavy set, whilst not eating enough will have him lose weight, and it's more than just physical appearance that's affected. For example, if Arthur is thin, he'll be much more sprightly and manoeuvre a little quicker, but he won't be able to obtain a great deal of damage. On the opposite side of the coin, if he's on the heavier side of things, he'll be slower and more sluggish, but will able to withstand more damage. Early on in the title, Arthur is introduced to the gameplay aspect of hunting legendary animals. These are more beneficiary than you may realise. Each animal has its own unique trinket which can be collected after skinning the remains and heading to a fence. These trinkets have their own individual perks which can be of great use to the player. Such examples are the buck antler trinket, which grants the player a higher quality of pelt when skinning animals, or the pronghorn horn trinket, which prevents animal carcasses you are carrying on horseback from decaying. These are but to name a few. It's not just Arthur's cores and health indicators you need to keep an eye on, there's also his steeds. In similar fashion, your horse cores must be maintained, albeit there's only a health and stamina one this time. Purchasing horse treats from stables or using plant life found out in the wild are great ways of keeping the animal replenished and healthy. Alternatively, similar to Arthur, your horse will need to rest from time to time. Holding down the Y button on Xbox or a triangle on the PlayStation can hitch your horse to most open grounds, or if you're close enough, to a nearby tree. Getting around the world of Red Dead Redemption 2 can be a long-winded task, and although the world is full of life, sometimes players just want to get from point A to point B without a fuss, so let's look at some gameplay tips for travelling. Arthur's horse has 4 stages of bonding, and after unlocking the latter stages, you'll earn new little perks for the horse, including skid turns and rearing. Bonding with your horse over time is very important. It concerns to your relationship. The bigger the bond, the better the horse will react to Arthur. It will become less skittish in the face of danger, have increased call distance when trying to retrieve it, as well as increased stamina and health attributes. To raise your bond with your horse, simply spend some time with it, caring for it. You can pet the horse, brush the horse, walk or obviously ride the horse, or contribute to the levels of bonding and trust. On top of this, purchasing better equipment from stables, including upgraded saddles and stirrups, will also decrease such things as stamina deterioration and health. On a side note, additional special saddles can be crafted by collecting specific animal pelts and taking them to the local trapper, each with their own unique ability. One item that's absolutely vital concerning your horse is a bottle of Horse Reviver. When your steed has found themselves in a spot of bother and are out for the count, Arthur can revive the animal using this special tonic. These are found throughout the open world in Red Dead Redemption 2, or more simply can be purchased in the stores. It's a handy item to have, as once a horse is downed and not revived, it's lost forever. If you do find yourself out in the wilds without a steed to carry you back to town, there is an alternative way to make it to the nearest settlement. Sometimes Arthur can flag down passers-by and request a lift to the closest town. Most of the time the driver will oblige, but factors can alter their opinion on Arthur that need to be considered. For example, if Arthur is covered in blood and guts, an innocent traveller is less likely to offer him a ride in fear for their own safety. Yes, the game is that detailed. We discussed earlier about horse cores, and there's a nice little trick to sustain your horse's stamina for longer. When galloping, if you press the travel button in time with the horse's gallop, either A or X depending on your console, its stamina will drain much more efficiently. Also, petting the horse while riding will give it a little stamina boost too. Using these tips combined together can make a longer journey a little shorter. Most veteran players of the game, including myself, at one point or another have face-planted a tree or tripped over a rock whilst riding through rough terrain, but there's a little tip to players to help avoid this occurring. When travelling through a wooded area, for example, if you simply hold down the travel button, your horse will automatically navigate through the trees and rockery, avoiding collisions as it does so. Before we explore other ways to travel, after completing a particular earlier mission in the title, where Hosea and Arthur head out to locate the legendary bear, throughout the map several rare horses will spawn for Arthur to track down. These rare horses are often much stronger and faster than the ones sold at stables. As an example, I'll show you the location of my personal favourite, the Arabian Warped Brindle, which roams just north of the Wapiti Indian Reservation. Upon approaching the animal, Arthur must remain calm and gauge the horse's spook meter, calming the horse when prompted. If successful, you can obtain yourself a unique powerful horse from very early on in the game. Most of your travelling in Red Dead Redemption 2 will be done on horseback, but there are other means of travel if you so wish to try these. Back at camp, Arthur can upgrade not only the other gang members' lodgings, but of course his own. In doing so, the player will have unlocked the fast travel option, which can be accessed from the rear of Arthur's tent. One thing to note whilst using this fast travel is that Arthur can only use this to travel to places he's previously visited. A quick way to access the areas and locations is to use the automotive system you can find on most towns in the map, such as Valentine, Rhodes or Saint-Denis. Upgrading to a fast travel perk will also grant Arthur the ability to use this feature when out in the wild from any campsite he has set up. One last tip for travelling is a simple yet pretty effective one. When playing in first person mode, you can toggle the settings through the main menus, which will alter from button mashing to simply holding down the travel button. A handy tip for not tiring your fingers out. Hunting wildlife is a large part of Red Dead Redemption 2. It not only supplies Arthur with nourishment opportunities, but pelts and carcasses can both be collected at stalls for profit, or handed in to Pearson's camp for a multitude of perks referring back to the satchels, as well as contribute to camp upgrades. So let's look at some tips in regards to this. Fishing is a popular pastime in RDR2, and although the narrative doesn't allow you to obtain a fishing rod until the latter stages of Chapter 2, there is a way to obtain one earlier. Throughout several locations in the world, NPCs can be seen fishing. Using Force, Arthur can take their fishing rod, placing it permanently in his inventory, allowing you to fish from the very early stages of Chapter 2. If however you're unable to obtain the fishing rod, there are other ways to catch your lunch. For example, a bow and arrow is one way, as well as trotting over a fish in shallow waters with your horse, or simply throw a stick of dynamite into the waters. An additional tip for fishing is when you catch yourself a bluegill, which can be found almost anywhere in the world. If you're not planning to eat it, don't sell it at a stall, as you'll receive very little funding. Instead, mix it with berries which you can find in the wilderness, granting you the ability to craft a bottle of potent predator bait, which can be used to attract much larger and more profitable animals. Your binoculars are going to play a big part when it comes to hunting prey. Using them from a distance will not only allow you to study wildlife, in turn giving you information on how best to take them down, but will provide an accurate pelt rating. If you're chasing down a group of deer, for example, you'll want to know exactly which one has the perfect 3-star pelt, which when obtained is not only more profitable when selling, but can be handed to Pearson back at camp or to the travelling trader, who both have their own perks in regards to camp upgrades, special clothing and unique saddles respectively. Your horse is just one horse, so its carrying capacity is limited. Although it can withstand the weight of multiple peltskins, it can only carry 3 animal carcasses, 1 large one on the back and 2 smaller ones to its sides. A handy tip is to grab yourself a second horse. When you do, quickly bond with that new one, enabling you to ride it, then whistle for your original horse to follow. This will allow you to double your carrying capacity. Another way to obtain a perfect belt after you've located the prime animal is to use your lasso to rope it in, and deal with it in a much more up close and personal manner. Although a bloody mess of a job, it's a guaranteed pelt, especially if you're concerned about using the wrong weapon and ammunition type and ruining a 3-star into a 1-star. One important tip to remember is that after you've hunted the prey you've been searching for, some animals can decay pretty quickly, so it's best to deal with them as soon as the opportunity presents itself, whether it be making them into lunch or selling them at stalls, for example. If the carcasses are left for too long, they become useless to anyone. We've discussed how to make a profit from hunting and fishing, but of course there are other ways of making money outside of the main narrative, so let's look at some tips concerning these. In the city of Saint-Denis to the south, you'll sometimes come across beggars who ask Arthur for spare change. Arthur can contribute to the less fortunate by handing over 25 cents, where for his kindness he'll be rewarded with a tonic or the likes, which is normally purchased at a few dollars in store. A small financial save, but still a good one. Another way to earn some cash is to take on bounty posters you can find pinned up at local law enforcement establishments, such as this one, where you're tasked with tracking down and bringing to justice the snake oil merchant Benedict Albright. These side missions are pretty easy to complete and provide Arthur with a nice little amount of funding. If you're feeling a little less law-abiding, there's a multitude of ways concerning a criminality aspect that can net you a nice little sum. For example, whilst out on your travels, if you spot smoke trails in the distance, these are an indication of campsites. Most of these sites are home to valuables such as tonics, jewellery or provisions, but please bear in mind that if occupied, the owner won't take too kindly to you rummaging through their belongings. Many of the homes of civilians also have secret stashes. Sometimes the stash is in a bedroom chest or wardrobe, but quite often the loot is tucked away within a fireplace, so if you're thinking of breaking into an innocent's home, that would be a good first place to search. Don't worry too much about your conscience concerning the robberies of some NPCs, as quite a few of them have got shady dealings of their own going on. A few examples of these are the Valentine Doctor, who runs an illegal car game with the O'Driscoll gang in the back of his office, or the Strawberry Shopkeeper, who's moonshining out of his store basement. Illicit side businesses such as these can be robbed and often produce a wealthy profit. You can even approach horses hitched around towns and settlements and loot their saddlebags to see what goodies they are carrying. A quick tip for this though is to most definitely befriend the horse first, because if it's a skittish one, you'll soon know about it following a swift kick to the face. Slightly north of Horseshoe Overlook, there's a burnt down settlement previously known as Limpany. Whilst exploring this abandoned town, you'll find a few useful items, but the main profit is to the rear. At the former sheriff's office, underneath a table, is a lockbox containing a gold bar and a useful pamphlet. Reading any pamphlet will grant you the ability to create whatever it's just taught you, but the gold bar is where the interest peaks. Take this to any fence in the game for a great profit right from the beginning of Chapter 2. One thing we've not touched up on much is Arthur's reputation and character attributes, so let's look at some beginner tips concerning this. Just before we get into it, a quick note that if you wish to check your current reputation, simply press down on the D-pad. Performing some of the store robberies we discussed, it's probably best to wear a face covering to hide Arthur's identity, but what some may not realise is that the NPCs of the world will react to you wearing this accordingly. Shopkeepers won't even serve you. Dressing this way brings attention to Arthur, and if someone feels intimidated enough, they may alert the local law to your presence, which brings us on over to our next tip. If you've committed the crime at a location, even when your face was covered, both lawmen and citizens will still remember key features of Arthur. This can include the clothes he is wearing, the hairstyle and beard he is currently sporting, or even the horse he rode to town on or used to evade capture, so changing your appearance often, especially after committing a crime, is recommended. If you wish to swing your current reputation either way, greeting or antagonising NPCs is a handy way to achieve this. The most populated area of Red Dead Redemption 2 is the city of Saint Denis to the south, so spend time walking around the streets and interacting with the pedestrians of the world is an efficient way to achieve your preferred rating. A little fun to be had is by using the greet again and then antagonize option, which always leads to a comical outcome. Back at camp, Arthur can help out with the chores, ranging from chopping wood to filling pails of water to feeding the horses. Performing these actions, although sometimes they do become a bit tedious, will earn Arthur an increase in character attributes and reputation amongst his peers. Higher character attributes, noted in a Deadeye system for example, can unlock new features such as manually tagging targets while aiming. At Dutch's tent, where we earlier discussed camp upgrades, Arthur can earn a reputation increase by donating fundings for the camp, which is in turn used to purchase supplies and the like. Somebody pointed out to me a while ago that if you donate $20 at a time, as opposed to throwing the desired amount at it in one go, this is the most efficient way of gaining reputation, so even though it's a time-consuming process, in the long run it's worth it. Our final subject that we'll cover today is combat and weaponry. We've discussed the Deadeye function a few times in the video so far, but a helpful tip that some may not realise is that when activating the Deadeye to take down multiple enemies, it's actually more efficient to pop in and out of this feature, as opposed to slowly panning across the screen waiting to target your next enemy. If you wish to take down an enemy, or anyone in particular for that matter, you can charge at them and tackle them with the attack button. Plus, if you're currently holding a lasso, this will automatically hogtie the downed NPC, making looting them much easier. But please be aware, after a short while, they will eventually wriggle themselves free, and some may become hostile towards you because of your actions. Although we discussed tips on how to make a decent amount of money earlier, if you feel like saving some, there is a way you can save on purchasing expensive weapons from the gunsmith. Simply put, play the story and complete the side quests. A number of these narratives will grant Arthur access to a new range of arsenal to choose from. Resting anywhere in the world, whether it be at a campfire or out in the wilderness, or even on horseback, Arthur can craft a number of items by using the mortar and pestle option in the inventory wheel. One very handy item he can craft, and it won't cost him any supplies, is to take any bullet and craft a split point into it. This type of ammunition not only gives your weapon a damage increase and slightly decreases the time you're using it in Deadeye, but also gives you an additional 5 points of experience, as it's classed as a special type of ammunition. Also, you don't need to button mash neither, just simply keep hold of the prompted button for automatic crafting. Using the same weapon over and over may get a little boring, but it can be beneficial to Arthur. As he becomes more accustomed to it, his ability with it will increase. For example, he'll be able to reload it a little quicker and become more accurate with it too. You can see the full statistics of your favoured weapon alongside any other weapon you've obtained in the menus to view your progression. Over time, weapons will become dirty and will need cleaning. This is more than just a visual eyesore. When a weapon is unclean, the fire rate and damage can decrease, amongst other issues, and it's more than just constant usage that can cause this too. Walking a weapon through muddy waters, for example, will contribute to this. There are ways to slow down the process though. You can purchase wraps at the gun store, clean it yourself with gun oil, or pay the gunsmith to clean your weapons for you. When at the gunsmith, if you've decided on purchasing a more powerful type of ammunition, make sure to read the fine print and check the pricing. For example, high velocity rounds are more expensive than express bullets, yet express bullets are more powerful than high velocity rounds, so be sure to keep an eye out for factors such as those. I'm not sure how many tips we covered as I'm writing this, but there were a fair few. This video was intended at the new players of Red Dead Redemption 2, but hopefully if some of the more experienced players of the title watch this today, you've learnt a little something too. Aside from all the tips and guides you'll come across, the most important thing is just to immerse yourself in the world of Red Dead Redemption 2. There's a reason it's so popular with gamers. Regular viewers of my content may be aware that I've covered Beginner's Guide and RDR2 previously, but as stated at the beginning of this video, I wanted to make a compilation of them all collectively into one video. If you enjoyed what you saw today, you all know what to do, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing. Thank you all for watching. You've been listening to Phil of Philby Gaming, and I'll see you in the next video.